Great. Thank you for kicking us off, Jason.
Yep.
Go ahead and call the meeting to order. We're kind of late. Apologies for everyone working out the kinks. Let's go review the minutes. Thank you, Larry, for sending those out. Let me pull those up. It's from the last meeting. And could I get permission, Jason, to share my screen?
Yes. Sorry. I'm going to make you co-host, and you can go for it.
Thanks. All right. This was the 18th of January. And there was some budget on the 2023, reviewing it, the proposed budget, and had a result of our Board of Selectmen presentation from the last, from the survey results. Had some discussion about the ARPA usage, and I think we actually adjourned early. Any questions, comments, or motions to amend or revise?
Just from my side.
Okay. I move that we accept the meeting, approve the meeting minutes as is without amendment. Any seconds? Okay, Angela, second. Thanks. Let's go around the room. Will? Need a verbal aye. You're muted. Sorry. Finding the Zoom controls sometimes can be daunting, hidden behind windows.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, aye.
Okay, thanks. Larry?
Aye.
Angela?
Aye.
Likewise, aye. So, yep, thanks again to Larry for putting those together. Let's jump back to the meeting, the agenda. Let me share my screen. Okay, 5-year strategic tech plan. This relates to actually another agenda item, which is town meeting prep. So yeah, I wanted to discuss, get everybody's thoughts, especially Angela, what our thoughts are on, do we want to make another flyer this year for town meeting?
Sure, we can.
Possibly with some, basically the results of any updates we've done to the strategic tech plan, as well as maybe some of the findings of the survey, that type of stuff.
Do you know if the ARPA projects, they don't have to go to town meeting, do they, for approval? No, it's just the committee itself.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. So there's no need for us to really highlight the projects in the flyer.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, if it doesn't use town money, basically if it doesn't come from taxpayers, then and they basically don't have to. Taxpayers don't have to approve in town meeting. Then yeah.
Okay, I'll work on a draft that we can bring to the next meeting and review.
Great. And town meeting is currently scheduled for, is it May?
That part of, I'm not 100% sure what they decided on. I just know it's going to be more, it's at least later in the year because they want to keep it warm in case they have to do it outside. I believe it was late April, but again, I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, yeah, great. Okay, anything else on the strategic tech plan? Any other updates, Angela, or thoughts?
I mean, the biggest thing goes back to the ARPA stuff. So I don't know if you want to cover that now or if we have a line item devoted to that.
We do. This is upcoming surveys, including possibly an ARPA survey and recommended ARPA projects. So yeah, do you want to jump
Yeah,
on
we
that?
can jump to that. I mean, now that we've done the strategic plan, we've run the customer survey, we've gotten the analysis back from the survey. Now we've taken that analysis and we've shortlisted 4 projects that we think kind of speak to the feedback that we heard in the survey. And that's the upgrade of the town website, adding Wi-Fi to major town locations, the event scheduling system, and adding interactive conference room capabilities. So those are the 4 that we highlighted in the strategic plan. The ARPA committee just published the template that they want us to use for project submission. So now I'll have to go through and fill out the form. And Jay, you and I need to connect on that. I want to make sure that we're not submitting anything that you're submitting so that we've got alignment on that. But basically, I'll fill out these forms. I can circulate them so everybody can read them. The biggest piece is getting cost estimates. And it looks like they're just looking for directional cost at this point. So we've just got to, there's at least 2 of the 4 where we need to get some level of cost estimate to be able to submit the form. So that's essentially the work I think that's coming up. And the deadline is the 28th. So we have about a week and a half to do it.
Angela?
Yeah.
Could you just repeat the 4 items again? I just want to capture them.
Yes. Number 1 is upgrading the town's website.
Okay.
The second one is adding Wi-Fi at specific town locations. This relates back to what Jay was telling us about like DPW, where they have to essentially go back to another building to be able to compile some of the work that they're doing, and then take the machine back out to another location because the Wi-Fi is not strong enough across the whole facility. Event scheduling, and that was across departments. There were many departments that were looking for some ease of registration for programs that they're running. And then interactive conference room capabilities was more like the Zoom rooms and adding that type of capability.
Thank you.
So I mentioned the deadline. So I'll circulate something next week with what we have. I do understand that most of these, before they would progress, I mean, first the ARPA committee actually has to select them and say that they're going to get funded. And then for most of these, we'd probably have to select like 3 vendors and get 3 quotes from different vendors. And then we would validate how that procurement process would move forward.
Yeah, I'm guessing that. So from my understanding, by the way, I've volunteered to assist with the ARPA committee in their surveys. Apparently, they would like to go to town residents and get a survey of prioritization of all of these things. So, and the timeline is, I guess, towards by the end of this month, they want to collect all of these proposed nominations for projects, et cetera, and then they want to put it in a survey and have that released by March 14th. With a deadline of survey submission by the 25th of March. So basically have these like literally 11 days for public input. So I
hope if they do that they include like a real description with the projects. I think it'd be hard for citizens to just look at like the title of a project and understand what it's actually doing. So
yeah,
hopefully we can maybe help them include the description stuff as well.
Great suggestion. I'll make sure that as we design the surveys, it includes like every option in there includes a link to a more detailed, because that's a great point. Yeah, And so the way I'm currently planning it, I'm going to basically co-locate this or co-release this with the 2022 satisfaction survey. So we can basically publicize, and it'll basically be a landing page. We understand people have survey fatigue, and I'd like to. I don't know if I've mentioned to you, Jason, but I'm interested in upgrading our SurveyMonkey account to be a more higher end one. So we discussed with you and Mark Purple getting a little bit of budget for that this year, even though I've included in our budget for next year. We don't have the budget yet. Basically, it allow us to dynamically create the branch logic within the survey. So we can, if somebody only wants to fill out a portion of the survey, like the ARPA's portion, they don't have to fill out the rest of it, or vice versa. Basically allow, it's almost like a home page or landing page. Here's the surveys that are currently going. Do you want to fill out just the ARPA portion? Do you want to fill out the satisfaction? And if you're filling out the satisfaction, do you want to fill out just the library portion and the rec portion, or do you want to fill out just the youth fans? Basically, so they can sort of pick and choose up front, as opposed to what was previously like. It's like this. Once you get into it, it's going to be a 25, 30-minute march through section by section, and there's no skipping. And we saw people would drop off because they were uninterested after a while, and perhaps didn't have interest in filling out certain portions. So anyway, that's
what is your target for releasing the survey this year?
Basically, target is to co-locate this with the release of the ARPA survey. So March 14th.
March 14th.
Did you already upgrade the SurveyMonkey?
I haven't yet. I need to. I'll print off the quotes, and I'll send you and carbon copy you an email and carbon copy Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're doing a flyer for town meeting and town meeting isn't happening until the end of April or potentially May, do we want to do on the flyer the QR code again to get to the survey and leave it open that long so that people would have an opportunity to fill it out?
I'm almost tempted, given that I'm almost tempted to not wait until town meeting. That's a long time to leave it open. I'd rather just have a big push, especially if we're joining forces with ARPA, and we're going to be putting up the board again at the transfer station. We'll probably work with Jason to put a link on the website.
We can do other marketing. I mean, we could do the My South Borough blog and some
thing.
Facebook groups and stuff like that. So, okay, I just wanted to know if we should put it on the flyer or not. It sounds like no.
Yeah, I'm guessing we'll probably close it before then, but we can decide. I mean, it's 11 days for a survey, which is what ARPA wants to do. That seems very short.
Does feel short.
But so I don't know whether we want to, for the satisfaction survey, want to keep it that short or want to extend it out. Maybe we can extend it out, at least our portion of the survey, the satisfaction portion longer. But, I don't think we need to keep it open for months and months and months, but yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's actually the covers the next item. So yeah, basically I've already been cutting questions out of the 2021 survey, trying to simplify it a little bit, keep sort of back to a core set of questions that we can then do trend analysis across years.
You sent that out, Matt. Did you want us to read that and send feedback back to you on the survey itself?
I would absolutely, yeah. If there's any feedback, granted, almost all these questions are either verbose copy and paste from this survey that was professionally designed for municipalities, or it was the questions were given to me by the department heads. But if somebody has some sort of usability or verbiage or something wrong, absolutely feel free to send me suggestions. Okay. Next, town status updates, IT budget usage. Um, Jason, I know you mentioned that were working on a server config. Do you want to share with us the status and the budget and so forth?
Yeah, so first off, good news is that I've got it under budget. That's the first and foremost. At least we're not
That's awesome.
anywhere near what our original quotes were. As we talked about before, I gave the information to both HP and to Dell for them to give me a couple of options. HP's options at the end of the day just end up being way too overpriced, and HP bloated in the sense. I think that they were really, at the end of the day, they were really trying to push their new technology with the and I still have a hard time. SimpliVity is what it's called. Saying, yeah. So, and I know there's both, HP and Dell. At the end of the day, they're both trying to sell me on our products, right? So, and I try to be as straightforward with both HP and Dell. Listen, you can sit here and give me the whole, sales pitch about how I should be with you and how I should not be with you or the other person, and also made it clear what my budget, at least what I was looking to spend in a sense, because I didn't want, but HP just could not match what I was looking to spend with a setup that I was looking to hopefully get hooked up for us. And Dell did. Dell actually had a better presentation. They took a lot of time to, HP did collect our data. And Dell did a similar process. They had an application called Live Optics, which was actually something that they had produced in the past, and a lot of people started downloading and using for free. They finally privatized it on their own, and now you have to really purchase it through them to do that. So they gave me a really good report on what we currently have, and what our utilization is, IOPS, and all of that. I have that report here, but I was really conflicted as far as like sharing it in a sense of on the screen and stuff, because there's a lot of information.
Yeah. Don't share it publicly. Yeah, here.
No.
I'd be interested in on the side, just
Yeah.
reviewing it just out of interest, but
Yeah.
that's something we can keep for security reasons,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I just, that was one thing I didn't feel too comfortable doing. But at the end of the day, they presented me with, a fair estimate of what we currently have, and I told them I don't have any plans on growing dramatically. I mean, there are some things where, obviously storage is going to grow over the next year or two or three. But my plan is I want to get to the cloud. And what's my best option for doing that? And they presented me with their HCI option, which, at the end of the day, besides budgeting, was a pretty fair option for us to go towards. I was trying to bring up this one thing here. A second. Sorry, I just had the document open and I closed it. Mistake.
No problem.
So, so it's the HCI. It's the VRail E560, and it is a 3-node configuration, but they gave me two options. They gave me that option, which I'm talking about right now, and then they also gave me the default three host servers with the SAN. So the whole 4, pretty much the typical setup that you would usually have. But with this setup, it gives me the 3 host servers, but everything is actually all incorporated on all 3 hosts. The storage, the memory, the CPU usage, and everything is all pre-built in this one machine. So
what is the configuration called? What was the?
Yep, it's called let's see here, VRail E560 node configuration. It's the HCI solution from them.
VRail, VRAIL?
Yeah, VX Rail. V is in Victor, X Rail.
E560.
Yep.
I assume it comes with
I'm just
network
sorry,
switches. Sorry, go ahead, Larry.
this is a three server configuration?
Yep.
Okay,
With
I'm sorry.
with VMware Enterprise Edition.
Great. I assume it comes with network switches as
Yep.
well,
So
right? 10 gig.
the whole price was configured with 2 network switches, 10 gig setup. They wanted to do the 20 gig. I'm like, I don't need 20 gig. There's no. So yeah, the 10 gigs are fine. And again, at the end of the day, between, like I said, with the pricing, the way it is right now with everything across the board, I was impressed with how much work they put into bringing that price down below what my budget was. So it was great to have them work with me on that part. HP would just not budge. They were just like, I understand that there's processors that are back ordered and all this stuff that's back ordered, but they just would not budge on the price at all. And even with that on Dell's end, and they still, like, my switches are back ordered currently, but the servers were pretty quick to come on board. And I have a kickoff meeting this week just to kind of do the initial talks about what the setup is going to be like. And they are coming in and doing that, like I said, under budget, including the install
work,
including the switches, and including the servers. So yeah, it was a great price. And so we're going to have a kickoff meeting, talk about my configuration and what they're going to do. They're going to install everything for me. The only thing that I will have to do is just migrate the servers over to the new configuration, which I pretty much volunteered. I was like, yeah, I have no problem with doing that. I enjoy just flipping switches and moving them over. So
What was the final purchase price, Jason? Where did we land?
it was at 83 and change.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to bring it up. Like I said, with the install included and everything. So it was like.
And what was the budgeted amount?
85,000. So it was 83,660. Like I said, with install, the 2 10 gig switches, the 3 host servers, and VMware Enterprise Edition.
How much storage capacity does that provide?
They have 20. It says raw 28 gigs, 28 terabytes. I'm sorry, 28 terabytes. And that's total between all 3.
Is that the protected amount, or is that the raw amount?
The raw amount.
Okay. So basically, it's probably like a third of that is the protected amount, because it makes triple mirror copies.
Yep.
So just shy of 10 terabytes. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just it says about 12 terabytes is what I'm seeing on here.
Okay.
Yep. So, and again, and that was because I told them we're at 7, so I foresee a little bit of growth between now and fire department likes to honk their horns at the lieutenant that lives next door. They scare the crap out of me a lot sometimes. But no, it's I told them I'm not planning on growing tremendously. My goal is to get us over to the cloud, and that's why they really scaled it down to give me at least that cushion in case I need to build something out in between that time.
And HP's was more expensive than that, huh?
Yeah, HP's was far more expensive. It was.
I thought the quotes that they gave us were like around 80 for some reason.
Yeah, so they started off with 80, and then they came back to me right after the holidays and were like, "Oh yeah, all the prices have changed. This is the new pricing." And it was all from each level that they showed me. It started at 150K going down. The least amount was 92,000. I was like, okay, well, that's not going to be an option right now. So, and that was, and even with those 92,000 configs that I'm talking about, that wasn't even including VMware Enterprise.
Oh wow.
That was just their equipment. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen.
Well, that's great news. It sounds like it's moving forward. So the total, I mean, I guess they didn't give you any estimates on when the switches would be available. Are we talking months or?
It should be, from what I'm seeing, it does say at least a month out, 30 days is what it's saying, estimated wise. So hopefully it's sooner. And again, even with the servers, I was thinking it was going to be a little bit longer too, because they did tell me to kind of expect delays. But like I said, the servers just got drop shipped last week, so that was great news. It was kind of, you know, unexpected, but also great news that they got delivered a lot sooner. So we're just waiting on the switches currently.
We don't expect any operational issues with the current servers. I mean, they've got enough life left in them that they'll survive until we can get the new systems in place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I need some real wood around me right now to knock on, but you know,
Yeah.
hoping that they exactly. They are in a good place right now. You know, hardware wise and all. We still have support them on them as well in case something did come up. And you know, all backups are current. I get the reports every week, so our backups are in a good place as well.
Thank you, Jay.
Okay, thanks for that update.
Yep.
Moving on. This sort of relates, you know, do you have any current plans already for the hardware you're end of lifing, or you're ultimately be migrating off? The only reason why I ask that is that it might be useful, and again, love your thoughts, but might be interesting to use one of the existing servers as sort of a, you know, to host the redundant. If we do have a redundant internet connection at a, you know, a different building, and we still need like basically a basic hypervisor or basic physical machine to host the active failover firewall in that location. Might be useful to have a, you know, machine. It doesn't need very much processing power and almost no storage, right?
Yeah.
Just need something.
Yeah, that could be possible. Again, I'd also want to make sure that those devices are, you know, as I said, they're in a good place currently, but they do end of this year, and support on them all ends. So I would kind of be a little bit risky to put something on. Not saying that it will break, but
Yeah.
it would be kind of risky to put something as important as that on a machine that, you know, we're not going to be updating or keeping current or have support on. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, you know, that's the challenge with this. What's really nice about this new cluster is that, like, it's like rock solid. Like, it's a tank. Like,
Yeah.
nothing's going to bring it down in that location for any of those three machines because there's so much redundancy built in, auto failover, and this is wonderful. Thank you, Jason, for all your work and helping move the town towards this. This is something we should have had a long time ago. And so this, I think we and many people in town will breathe a sigh of relief once this is done, moving towards that new setup.
You know,
And so, I mean, this is sort of I know it's a sort of future planning and sort of outside the scope of discussion, but when we do move towards internet connections, we need to think about, do we want the gateways for both internet connections in the same physical location, which is basically on the same cluster, like active failover, which we could do, but we might consider if we want to cover the case for, you know, half the, if the internet's, or if a fiber went down in the middle of town and we want to put the redundant internet connection down south on the south side of the Route 9, maybe it makes sense to put a gate, the firewall or gateway or virtual firewall gateway there for failover. And so it wouldn't be a primary thing. It would be active failover. So the active firewall would be on this cluster and it has full redundancy, et cetera. But only if for some reason, a fiber got dropped in the middle of town that made the town network split brain where there's, north side and south side. This would allow the south side to come back up.
So this would be putting it in a new location?
Be putting it in this, it calls come down to this be putting it in the location of the secondary ISP provider, which we need to think about. Do we want to run both ISP providers to the same, to the public safety building, or do we want to have one ISP provider in public safety and one in, I don't know, public works or rec or, someplace?
But this would be a new space that we don't have right now.
So I think, and we do have space within DPW, where we currently have our setup that is now locked away in a back room over at DPW. And even in in the past, in items that I've configured in the past for this same type of setup, even a Cisco ASA firewall can send pings or hello packets pretty much to that port and see if it ever goes down. You can configure the firewall to kind of send these messages to the other firewall saying, hey, are you down? If you're alive, respond, back and forth responses. And if one goes down, then the other one will pretty much kick over and take over. I think we could probably do that with a Cisco firewall.
Cisco firewall.
Yeah, in general,
Yeah.
that could probably just send those packets back and forth, making sure that they're alive between the DPW and public safety, without having to utilize VMs or anything like that. It could be a possibility just doing it that way as well.
Yeah, if we could do it without VMs, Cisco firewall, completely agreed. That would be ideal. Like if it's built into the hardware.
Yeah.
We need to
So
verify that
what,
Cisco supports provider diversity or network ISP diversity, so that
Yeah.
they
So this
both can
would-
active failover.
this would just be for internet connection. It wouldn't be to run applications.
No, it would just be for the
Correct.
ISP. Just
Okay.
Yeah.
What about, would there be any licensing issues, and also how often would you have to touch it to put patches on and things like that?
So, I mean, not rare. It's very rare for having to put too many patches on, especially like an ASA firewall. They typically come out with one, maybe two a year. If they do come out with a patch that year, it's usually like one. And they typically don't recommend an update to that newest patch until at least 2 or 3 other patches have come out between then. At least that's my experience in the past, is usually wait 2 or 3 versions before you update it. So, and in that situation too, I would typically update one, make sure it comes up correctly. And then if that's good, making sure the tile is completely up, then go and apply that same patch to the second firewall. And again, make sure that comes up, vice versa, whatever one I decide to update first. But yeah, it would.
So you would be doing some maintenance on this periodically.
Yeah, periodically.
Anything that runs code,
it's going to
have to do maintenance. It will have
Yeah.
patches. So like
Even my transmission.
even the transmission or a network switch, which should be the dumbest thing possible, they have there's patches, there's updates.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything that has firmware, which is pretty much everything electronic nowadays, there has to be maintenance.
So
Yeah, I sort of understand that. I'm just worried more about about Jason's time. I just want to make sure we're not creating an extra big to do for him.
And even with that said, I would, first of all, whatever firewall solution I go with, I'm going to make sure I purchase support for that firewall so that I don't have to necessarily be the only person that's making that update and not have support in the background, in other words. So, my plan would be to kind of schedule something like, typically, again, past experience for me with ASA firewalls with Cisco, I have scheduled a call with Cisco and said, hey, I'm putting your new patch in. And I've had these encounters in the past where something doesn't come up or it takes forever to come up. So I kind of schedule a call the tag team, have them on call, start the process of updating that firewall or switch, whatever it might be. And, always have that tech ticket on call in case something did go wrong, and have resources available. So that would be something, obviously, I would do, is make sure I have the right support with whatever product I choose.
Matt did raise one failure mode. I mean, we've been concerned in this effort with an ISP going down and having an alternative ISP, but there's the other failure mode that Matt brought up earlier in this discussion of the fiber going down between the locations in town. And that has a few opportunities and effects. Both firewalls will now believe they're isolated, number one, but with the ability, for example, to create a VPN through the internet between the firewalls, you could actually have the whole town connected again, in spite of the fact that you've got a break in the middle of town somewhere. if the ISPs are on opposite sides of that break. So that's an additional opportunity for resilience if appropriate.
Yeah, good point. I'm guessing that in 10 years from now, if we truly have all of our services moved to the cloud, then self-healing of the network itself between portions of the network is much less important than simply self-healing of the portions to be able to get out to the internet. So, in terms of prioritization, I would prioritize, up to you, Jason, but I would prioritize just if we had redundant internet connections with path diversity, bring something into public works, bring something into the public safety, and then put firewalls to those locations. So maybe just active failover. It doesn't even have to be active. So that and if there's a path cut in the middle, then you have split brain and both take over, which is perfectly fine in that case because it allows both portions to still get out to the internet.
Yeah, sure.
And I actually had heard before my time that when the fiber project was started, there was a break at one point over near the art. I think the one that was going towards the art center. Somebody hit a pole. I think it was actually one of the electric companies or something hit or broke the connection and had to be reconnected again at some point. Again, this was prior to my time, and it was probably, from what I understand, it was like during the time when they were actually starting the process of linking the buildings. So it can happen. Anything can happen.
And remind me, did you include your fiscal year 23 budget, Jason, for new firewalls?
Yes. Awesome. Yep. Network equipment. It was under a network equipment, and yep.
Great. Again, up to you, but I haven't looked into it for some time, but you might consider, now we have some good virtualization. I guess if these are physical devices, it's easier to keep, and especially if you're doing 2 locations. But I know that Cisco also has their virtual ASA. So maybe for one of the locations, you just go with virtual. I don't know if what's easier to administer, but if you're administering one physical device, you might as well do both so that's identical. But yeah.
I'm definitely open to options and listening to what we can possibly do. Definitely.
Okay. Thank you. Really quick, I'm guessing we don't have much of an update, but electronic healthcare records and data security for youth and family services. It sounds like they're sticking with their existing therapy notes.
Yep, they have signed a BAA agreement. The town attorney agreed to the terms that was on there. We got it signed and sent back to them. They also feel very comfortable with the product and how they're using it. So that's also a key component to it as well. I mean, if it's doing what they need it to do at the end of the day, and it's also protected at least with the BAA agreement and HIPAA compliant, they're in a good place currently. At least with that.
What's the name of that solution?
Therapy notes.
That's great. Sounds good. And yeah, I know that this is probably already on your radar, but it'd also be good to just review. It's great that Therapy Notes and it's probably doing all the data storage, right? They're handling majority of the controls, but there are probably still some security controls that are within our purview, such as any sort of administrative controls like account allocation, authentication to Therapy Notes, making sure that the laptops that access it are patched, etc. So we can take it offline, Jason, but I'd love to just sort of review and make sure that.
I mean, just to kind of ease some of is I required them, at least told them, especially when we were doing this, is you need to use a town laptop or computer. to utilize the application. I do not want you using something different that I'm not managing and making sure is being patched. And as you know, we do have a WSUS server that's doing patches, and also Sophos in the background that is consistently updating each of the clients to make sure that they're up to date with that as well. So just to kind of ease some of that, you know, that at least that part of it is in place and still going good.
Do you happen to know whether they've enabled two-factor authentication? I'm assuming they have for therapy notes.
With their application, I'm not 100% sure. I can check with her on that one. And if they did, we could actually embed it into Duo as well, because Duo gives you that capability. Just add as many applications as you want. So yeah, no, that's a good idea. I'll reach out to Sarah and see if she can reach out to Therapy Notes and see if that's something we can enable, because they can definitely add it right on their phones.
I know that Therapy Notes supports some sort of two-factor, but I really like your idea. If we can join and do truly single sign-on to the town's single sign-on and use the existing Duo multi-factor, that allows for much better, control. We can, verify that it's enabled. It's not yet another password. It's, single sign-on using your existing. That would be good. So, yeah.
Agreed.
Awesome. Okay. I think that's all the questions. Anybody else? Any other questions from anybody else on Youth and Family Services software or system? Okay. Jumping to library hotspots. I know we had a discussion in our last MTC meeting with Ryan about this. I spoke with Director Donovan today, and we kicked around the idea of, he basically wants to get public opinion or public thoughts on support for hotspots. So either embedding that question in a survey that he's going to be putting out as a library, or embedding it within the town satisfaction survey. And I said I'm supportive either way. So
this feels like something that isn't really appropriate for town vote, though. I mean, that's like saying we should vote on whether we have a food bank or not. The whole purpose of the library hotspots is for people who can't afford to have hotspots on their phones. And most people in Southborough can and do, so they don't see the relevance of this. But the whole intention of the program was for people who were low income and needed to be able to have the ability to rent hotspots. So I don't know, it feels to me like.
Let me just I understand when we spoke to Ryan Donovan, he mentioned that it was definitely for people who were maybe leaving for a while, etc. I didn't pick that up. Is that true, that basically this is
why the program was started? There's a lot of information online about it. It was started during the pandemic because many low-income communities didn't have access to hotspots. And so this gave them a way of basically getting that connectivity through their local library.
It is basically, is it permanent effectively? I mean, it's basically permanent loans?
It's like they're renting them. Like they check them out and then they check them back in, just like a library book.
Yeah. And from what I understand, Ryan would probably speak better to this, it was some type of grant program in a sense. Like They got the grant money for it, especially during the pandemic, to get those provided to them. And there may be a time where they have to actually start paying for them. And that's why he's kind of like looking for other solutions if we needed to go in a different way.
Well, if we were gonna survey anybody, I would survey the people that are leveraging the services that are already in place. So those people who are using the food bank, those people who are using those types of services. I think the question is really directed at that target audience. Would they find the ability to have this type of rental Wi-Fi for free beneficial if it meant they could get rid of, other costs that they were taking on?
Yeah. So for low income, to me, internet is such a vital thing, especially nowadays with school, etc. And being able to check out a hotspot for a few weeks is not sufficient. Like these really needs to be some sort of permanent solution, at least during the school year. I mean, you can't tell your kids we're going to have hotspot for the next 2 weeks.
Well, the schools will provide a computer if you're unable to provide your own. So I know the school has different programs, and they made a lot of parent emails during the pandemic that if anybody has any kind of hardship with supplying their child with a computer, that they would do them. They used to have pools of computers that the kids would share. And then I think they went to a different model, but the school will help you if you can't afford computers.
The school won't help. The school will help with the computer, but they don't help with hotspots, I assume.
I don't think so. Not that I'm
Yeah.
aware of, but I don't know everything that
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah, I think
Do,
the example Ryan gave is that we've
do
seen
the,
some certain low-income families, take their kids to park outside Starbucks or something like that, which is not good. Yeah. Sorry,
do
Larry.
do the wireless carriers, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, have any programs of that sort to assist those community, underserved or lower income communities?
Not that I'm-
I believe they do have something for cell phones. So this is something I'm going to look into. I've been helping a family that is that's actually in this situation, and I'm going to be looking into the cell phone, and I'm going to check, see if they provide, you turn that cell phone into a hotspot. I mean, that's basically what we need, like something sort of permanent. It can't just be a temporary, check it out for a few weeks.
I
Um,
think the question had come up whether hotspots come as a default with your cell phone package, and you do have to order it. You do have to pay more in your plan in order to have that capability. So it is possible that people have a cell phone, but they do not have a hotspot as part of their
oh, really?
package.
Yeah, it's usually
Okay.
for like Verizon, it's like $10 more a month just
Yeah.
for the hotspot.
That's not true on Verizon. It might be for the others.
Oh, okay. I
I'm
know, at
18.
least for mine, it's $10 more a month on my town bill for me to have the hotspot on my phone. At least that was what.
Really?
Yeah, that was the same when at North Hill, and it was the same at Senior Aerospace. It was like $10 extra on the line. $9.99. Sorry, $9.99.
Yeah.
Never
9.99.
10.
Oh, that's much better.
Yeah, it looks a lot better.
If there really is a need in town for something like that, the alternative, because as Matt points out, lending a hotspot for 3 or 4 weeks doesn't really solve a problem for anybody. And so the first question is, do we have a population that is in need of this type of service? And if so, does it make more sense to provide centralized facilities like a library that have Wi-Fi access that you could go to? Like, the library has that when it's open. You can always go to the library. If we provided a room down at South Union School for people who live on that side of town where they could go and bring their laptop or maybe have a few computers there. There might be other ways of solving this that are actually, more broadly applicable than lending somebody a hotspot for 3 or 4 weeks.
Larry, one thing I think I heard Ryan discussing this, and he said that some people use them when they're traveling.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a strong use case for that. That's irrefutable. Like if somebody needs to be able to travel and they're not going to be, they need, there's going someplace that doesn't have Wi-Fi. That makes complete sense to me because that's a sort of a time limited, it's a fixed thing, and I think it's great if the library loans it for that. But for this other use case, which is, I like Larry. Where you're going with this, Larry, is maybe maybe it makes sense to add Wi-Fi, or I don't know, to make sure all of our facilities, just like the library itself, have access to Wi-Fi. Or
And
maybe we
if
find
we had, say, two or three rooms, one in the library, one in South Union, maybe a third one that, were available, from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. most days. Kids could go there for their homework if they don't have internet. People could go there to read the news if they don't have internet. I mean, again, this is assuming that there is actually a population that needs it. And I have no data on that at all. But something like that might be a friendlier and more permanent and broadly applicable solution than lending hotspots.
Yeah, or maybe even get an extra one of those exterior outdoor Wi-Fi things that Jason will eventually be buying for the public works, and put one on the library too. So I mean,
They'll
worst
have
case,
both
if
thing
your son
outside.
has an assignment to do at midnight or something like that, and you don't have local Wi-Fi, you can pull up to the library and connect and turn it in. I don't know. It's something to think about.
And add to the numbers that I see every morning after 7:30 in the morning, sitting in the parking lot, using probably my Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I'd really like to know what show they're watching at 7:30 in the morning. It's too funny.
Yeah. After you start letting out a hotspot, there's gonna be start increase in requests for library supplied checkouts of Netflix accounts
I was just gonna say, next thing we're
and
gonna have is Netflix account,
Disney Plus,
Disney
please.
Plus. True story.
That's good. Okay. So yeah, these are great discussion. We'll go back to, and I'll go back to Ryan and provide him some of this feedback and get his thoughts on it. Okay, MTC processes, action items tracker, and I know, Larry, you sent out a draft or older version. Is that something we want to share on the screen?
Do
And
you want
just
to?
walk through an update?
I can share it. Sure.
I can share it if that's.
Okay, if you want to share it that way, I can update it and take notes at the same time.
Okay, sure, yeah. Okay, me save it. We first save this doc. Hold on a second. Sorry, almost there. All right, let me share my screen. Okay, so I think these are all from last year. So this is.
You make that
This is,
bigger.
oh, sure, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
The status, unknown, open. What is IP?
In progress.
Oh, in progress, and then rest is resolved.
Yes. Sorry about the abbreviations. I just wanted it to fit in the cell.
No, that's good. Thanks. Okay. So contractors subject to conflict of interest requirements similar to board members. What was this from? I assume that in general, I'd like to avoid conflict of interest for anything. Do you remember the context for this, Larry?
Give me a second and I can, that was what, February 9?
That around the data analyst folks that came on when we were
Oh,
onboarding
yeah, it might have
them?
had to do with the people working on the survey.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what conflict of interest we had.
Let's see. MTP processes. This update. Oh, no, this actually was in the context of the updated agreement that Tim put together for integrating into our rules of procedure. If you remember, we
Okay.
did that last
Yep.
year, actually around this time. And one of the questions that came up during that discussion was, are these people subject to conflict of interest requirements similar to board members? And the answer was not sure.
Okay. We'll leave that one open because I need to review what that doc said. I would assume that yeah, if there are if there's any potential for conflict of interest, then it should be, we should definitely need to have it sort of covered under the contract, that we want to avoid contractors that there is a potential for conflict of interest.
I guess
So,
the question is there any formality associated with it? You know, do they have to sign a conflict of interest statement, or is it just a gentleman's or gentleperson's agreement to avoid conflict of interest? I mean, let's face it, we might not be aware of it if we engage
yeah.
a contractor. So the question is, do we have an obligation, either formally or
To
informally?
make sure it's in the contract. Yeah, to me, it makes sense to have a clause in the contract that's covers, make sure that there's no conflict of interest. As they sign it, they agree that there are no conflicts of interest. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I can follow up. Let me put myself for this. And this is open, OPM.
Yeah, I'll update the spreadsheet so you don't have to take notes right now, and I'll just redistribute it.
Okay. HIPAA compliance issues. From my understanding, they are resolved. We're using Therapy Notes has its own one-on-one sessions, and when they need to do three-way calls, they use Zoom. Which have we assigned a BAA with Zoom?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yes.
Great.
That was like probably the first couple things I did. My first like month in.
Awesome.
That's closed.
Yep. Technology requirements for the department. I think that's ongoing. I know Sarah Castle still had some desire around almost a CRM style system to be able to send out, collect email addresses, collect contacts, send those out. So,
I think part of that gets spoken to with the event registration system that we're putting forward for the ARPA funding, but she had a separate database that they were also looking at.
okay. And was that the system, the event registration system, was there a desire to have a common event registration system for all departments? And the reason why I ask is because I know that Rec has, of course,
Yeah.
Using
It
their
was
own software, which they really like for,
it was the idea of, because many of the departments we talked to had like that similar need. The senior center had it, health, youth and family services had it, Rec had it. So it was the idea of, could we have one central system that everyone was able to leverage?
Okay.
Was that in the sense of like constant contact type stuff we're talking about here, or? Yeah.
More like Salesforce, I assume, although nothing that heavy.
Yeah. I know that I can tell you this much. As far as the constant contact part of it goes, I believe they are gonna look into getting a license for themselves. And what happens with constant contact, I've reached out to Constant Contact to kind of figure out what the best solution was, to see if we can kind of combine forces in a sense. Better pricing, if anything. There was no better pricing for combining. Also, their modules are very specific to what you're trying to reach out, your outreach is. So like you can't purchase one license and then try to manipulate it the way you want it to be. You have like, and this is funny because I always make this ever since I did a Google search for Constant Contact, now any YouTube video I watch starts with Constant Contact commercials. So it's like, are you into pickling? And I'm just
tracking you.
So again, an example of what I see every day with the pickling solution is like, if you're looking to pickle, this is the solution for you. And what they, they're very, so if you're only doing pickling, it'll let you tailor it to what you're looking to, your outreach is. So if Youth and Family Services has one specific thing that they're looking to do, and Recreations has another specific thing, and then Board of Health has another specific thing, they can't purchase the same license and then kind of, okay, I only need to reach 1,500 people, and then Board of Health needs to reach 5,000 people, and then it just doesn't let you tailor it in that way for some reason, which is kind of silly. But yeah, I tried seeing if we could kind of combine forces, get better pricing, and there was no real answer that I wanted to hear from Constant Contact, other than they would have to be very specific to what they're purchasing, because they don't, like in the case with Board of Health, I believe they only need to reach out to like 1,500 people or something, so they didn't need a really big license. But the library needs to reach 5,000 people, so they pay another tiered level for between 2,500 to 5,000 people. So it's kind of silly, but it's just the way they are.
Constant Contact, it's not fulfilling the same need that we met with Sarah to discuss, where she was going to have the third-party contractor come in and build a database.
No, that was a little different, and that's kind of, that was kind of like where Larry was talking about a Salesforce type of solution, which is obviously way too much for what they would need. That's just totally out there. But yeah, in a sense, it's something different than Constant Contact. But just talking about what you were saying there, we have had at least a discussion about the Constant Contact and what we can do. Now that I've said it 19 times, I'm sure I'll get another couple more videos on my phone.
It sounds like that one's still open, Matt. I mean, it sounds like there's maybe some more, like just at least review that has to happen there.
Yeah. So speaking of Board of Health, do they have a need? Remind, do they have a need for electronic health record system, like therapy notes, or?
Not that I have been made aware of, and I've been in pretty good communications with not only the members of the Board of Health, but also the employees for the Board of Health. And I may be wrong, but I don't believe they mentioned anything like that to me. They were one of the people who were kind of reaching out about the Constant Contact stuff as well, to get an account and set up so they can reach out to people, especially with all this stuff with COVID. They were trying to reach out to a specific group of people, and that was something that they wanted to use. But at least not that I'm aware of. I know that they do have some Excel spreadsheets that they use for some of the stuff in the town that they could probably look into doing something different. And it could be a project that they might want to look into, but I haven't really had.
When we talked to them, they were talking about like a lot of drives that they did, like they do flu shot drives and they were doing booster drives and stuff like that. And that's where I think they had expressed that, like, these were kind of like little mini events where they needed to reach out to people, make them aware of the event, let people register for the event, and then be able to remind them and send reminders when that event was getting closer. So that's kind of what I remembered from the interview with them.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think let's just keep this open. I think in general, identifying technology requirements of the department, I don't know if we should even have a line item in here, because I would hope that we would constantly be working with the respective department and not necessarily say, okay, your technology needs are met, we won't talk to you again. I think it's
You're done.
You're done. No new tech for you. So just executive summary be added back to the strategic tech plan.
I forgot about that piece of feedback, so I'll do another 5.3 draft and I'll add that back in.
Thanks. Next one I think is done. Is that right, Jason?
Correct. There are some wirings that I have to do in there because they want to kind of get a hardwire connection in there for a couple of their computers. But besides that, they do have a connection to the internet.
So they're no longer paying for their own internet bill nowadays.
They canceled it, I think, like the same week I hooked it up. They were very quick to cancel it.
That's great. Yeah, I think they're paying like $100 a month or something like that. That's crazy. Improvements in the building system software. I think this is still open. Building permit system to ensure permits are only pulled by owners only. So I think this is still open.
The one piece I can add to that is, because this was something that when I first started, this was kind of a big deal when I first started. And from what I viewed, and it's been a little bit since I looked at it, but the process is in there to alert people of specific things. So the problem that I had heard was that too many alerts were being sent to like the historical commission whenever something was submitted. So it was like too many. They were pretty much getting alerts. It felt like for every single thing. So from what I understand, they didn't think that they were getting the proper alerts. But after reviewing it with Viewpoint, the settings are there. Like they are turned on, they're activated. There are emails associated to them where alerts. There's an actual step-by-step process of how it goes through the requesting process. Whenever they try to pull a permit, it goes to, it's pretty much like a Gantt chart or just like a feed of how it goes to each person in that specific process. So I could see that historical commission gets their alerts, building, Board of Health. If assessors needs to be notified for something, there's a line in there for that. So from what I can see in the outside, it looks like it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Is it maybe an open topic still? Maybe so. But at least from what I could see in a technical standpoint, the system had what it needed.
Well, that's good news. I think there were two issues from what I recall with the historical commission. One, they want to make sure that they were getting alerted, which is what you referred to, but they also wanted this feature that some integration between the building permit system and the record system to verify that the person pulling the permit was actually the owner of the property, or is basically somehow authorized to do it. And I think you have this, maybe my memory's wrong, but I have this memory when we met with the historical commission, the person we had, I think the chair, said that he had pulled a permit for demolishing the townhouse, and
It's
they let
just
him do it.
it's I don't want to speak for whatever he said, but from what I can see, it's impossible to do. Someone's going to look at it and say, what is this? Like, there's so many people that are involved in that string. If something had happened prior to my knowledge of me, obviously not being part of the town, I don't know. It could have been a human misstep, if anything. But from what I can see, the system does exactly what it's built to do. It notifies anybody who's involved in that pulling of the permit. I seen it in the steps. At least from what I can see technically, it looks like it's all there to do its process. So, I mean, someone's going to reach out to someone and say, I'm sorry, what are you doing? At least from what I can see in a technical standpoint.
Okay, that's great. So,
So do we believe that this is not a problem, really?
do we want to close this one? What do we recommend, Jason? Close this one, or should we just? I'm happy reaching out to the historical commission just to verify that they're happy now.
Again, I don't. You guys are the people who speak to the the residents and stuff. If you want to reach out again, by all means. Like I said, in my sense, it looks like it's doing exactly
doing it. Okay, all right.
As far as I can speak to.
Okay, I'll reach out to historical, make sure that they're good. But it's awesome to know that the system actually does what it needs to do. So that's great. All right, form questionnaire to vet technology products undertaken by town departments and boards. Refresh our memory, Larry.
Okay.
Oh, that's resolved.
That's resolved. Yeah. That if I presented this about I don't know 4 months ago. Basically a set of questionnaires or a set of steps to go through, to understand the purpose of the project, the scope of the project, the budget, if it's for single department or multiple departments, is it software or hardware, both? Is it an add-on? Is it hosted? Is it cloud-based? There was, I don't know, 2 or 3 pages of things, and we went through it. We haven't actually had the opportunity to try to use it yet, but it does exist.
Is that something we should be giving out to all of the department heads or, functional heads? Because I do hear comments, where they'll say, gee, I'm starting a technology project. I'm not really even sure what questions to ask. And so they're looking for either Jason or somebody to kind of come into those meetings and support them to try to make sure that all the right questions are getting asked. Maybe this is a way of doing at least a little bit of education so that they understand what some of those questions should be up front.
Yeah, I mean, we could schedule time at the next meeting just to review the questions one more time. Things get stale.
Sure.
And that would be a perfectly good use for it.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, let's schedule some our next MTC meeting to review it, and then yeah, definitely love to get your thoughts, Jason, on that questionnaire.
And there, just a second, you know, there is possibilities that even like local schools may have students that are interested in doing some type of volunteer work or something like this as well that you guys could reach out to or something. I know even in the past when I was at North Hill, because it was a senior living center, and we would actually have a bi-weekly we called it the Genius Bar. I hope Apple never heard about it. They would ask questions of us that came up, and they were, that might have been broken on their computers, but also they would have students from local colleges and stuff come down at least, once every couple of months and kind of, help them out with certain things like this, like their field, their expertise in their college degree was, computer science or something. So for extra credits, that would come down once every couple of months and do trainings that they, that any of the residents were kind of looking for, or even just support. So it might
I
be
love
something.
that idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll ask my son. He's involved in tech at school.
This is where having a school technology person on the committee would be very helpful, because they could provide a really great link into that student community and maybe help us advertise. And, there's got to be a lot of kids at Algonquin who could do something like that.
Yeah. So I will commit. I know that I'm way behind in this. I'll commit to reaching back out to the superintendent and the school board, because we're missing both an ex officio that should be on the committee from the school board, as well as another regular member of the MTC nominated by the school board. So we're down. So I'll commit to reaching back out. So yeah, absolutely, to both learn about the school's own technology for administrative technology, which is under the purveyance of the MTC, and then also projects like this. But I'll also talk to my son, he's one of the presidents of the Robotics Club of Algonquin, and he's involved, and he knows the mentors there. Be good to.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
I'm actually nominated by the school board for this committee. And, in the past, I was not actively soliciting from them because we had a member. Now that we don't, who would you suggest that I should contact over there? Who would be a good point of contact?
So we are down one committee member, and I thought it was the school board. I think maybe school board has two. Possibly
They might have two, but they definitely were the ones that I had to go through to be renominated.
Okay. I don't know who. I can get you a name afterwards.
Okay, that'd be good. I mean, and I guess the big question would be what kinds of things are we thinking that we could provide for them?
So in one of the recent advisory meetings, it brought up the discussion of what sort of collaboration can we do better to identify synergies and collaborative opportunities between the town and the school. And one of the basic things I can think about, well, I can think of a couple of ones, and I'm sure there are plenty of others, but like we have internet lines that go right by Woodward. Now I know there's this whole discussion about what's going to happen with Woodward, et cetera. But why is Woodward today paying for its own internet connection? From my understanding, is a consumer class residential connection for the entire school, when we could just easily drop a line in there and have a better internet connection. Likewise, the other schools, I think we have a fiber that maybe goes, Jason, you know better, goes past Finn Elementary as it goes down to the art building. That's one thing. Another thing is the senior center has asked if we could provide some sort of used laptops or loaner laptops to senior citizens in town. And we thought, well, maybe the school, some of these old Chromebooks that are end of life, could we repurpose those? So having somebody at the school to bounce those ideas off of. And technically, legally, the school board is supposed to review their administrative technology expenditures with the MTC. That's the purpose of the committee. So anything for administrative technology, not the educational technology, but the administrative technology, we're supposed to review those budgets. You know, for the past couple of years, we haven't had somebody on the board, so that they've been just blending it all into this one big school budget, and you know.
Well, do we want to step onto their critical path? Is that what you're saying?
No, but we want to identify opportunities for synergies between the town and between the schools. And legally, they are required to review their budget with us. I mean, it's in the town code. So,
Well, that would be
but
with the committee, not just with one person, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, have we invited them to do this?
We've invited them to send a representative to the committee. I mean, that's the purpose of, you know, that's the purpose of their ex officio member of their committee is to review their budgets with us. So it's not a committee to committee thing. It's their representative to us.
Okay, so it wouldn't be me. You're saying it'd be their representative to us.
There should be their ex officio member should be on the committee. Yes.
Okay, so, and we've been lacking that for some time now.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And I guess the question I'd have is, you know, a lot of their stuff is extremely focused on education, very specialized, and obviously probably doesn't have much in the way of commonness with, you know, the rest of the town. I'm just curious, you know, if we're going to get them to do this, is this just going to be an empty exercise, or do you think we'll find things where there could be cost sharing or whatever?
We'll find out. Intuitively, I think there's probably something out there, like the internet connections. That's a clear opportunity. Now, whether we want to actually do it or not, we should run the numbers. We need to think about how it's going to be done. But it's a question that advisory has asked us to look into. You know, the voters have had. You know, even, you know, it was actually, you know, predates Jason. You know, before Jason was hired, there's the question of, well, why don't we just join? You know, combine IT departments? And you know, I think our recommendation was no. I don't think we want to go that far. I'm just saying, hey, just have the school IT department run town tech. I think there's a clear reason why we have Jason. It's wonderful to have Jason on board, but I do think no. It's been awesome having Jason.
Yeah, but I guess, you know, my question would be: it sounds like we really sort of need to boot or reboot this effort, and it sounds like we need someone senior, and maybe it's the head of the school board, I don't know, who would actually appoint someone or designate someone to be this ex officio member, and then you know, schedule them in at least before we begin talking to them. You know, you know, I would talk to them one-on-one, but before we begin doing that, I think it'd be good for us to have them come to a meeting and let's, you know, discuss sort of, you know, the relationship going forward, and, you know, what we see, you know, what we would like to do or what the possibilities are, just brainstorm.
You know, some things just from my point of view, some of the things I can think of that would be extremely helpful, resourceful, is cybersecurity all the way around. How are they doing it? What are they doing? Are they doing something better than I'm doing? Am I doing something better than they're doing? Can we compare notes on how we can make ourselves better? right?
Okay.
That alone is such a huge undertaking, and
And
something that would be beneficial not only myself, but for the schools and vice versa, and for the town as a whole, knowing that, you know, I have their back, they have my back, type of thing, and we know exactly what type of security we got in place. Even if it's pen testing, kind of testing each other out, seeing where we're doing good and where we're doing bad. That alone can be so helpful, even if it wasn't, you know, dropping a fiber line or you
Yep.
know, the other stuff that you were just talking about. That piece alone, you know, because I was actually assisting the school administrator. It was the school administrator that had reached out to one of the principals who reached out, who had their assistant reach out to me to assist them in their hiring process for their new IT director, because the last IT director had left. So they were asking me if I could interview some of their candidates. And I was like, yeah, you're more than welcome to. That's not a problem. I can help out. So I actually know who the new person is that they hired there. I don't know him, but I know him like through our phone interview. And even when I was talking to the principal, I wish I could remember his name now. But you know, I was talking during one of the interviews with one of the candidates, and I'm saying this, and that about what we can do as far as cybersecurity and how we can make things better. And even the principal was like, you know what? I didn't even think about those points. I should definitely bring that back to our tech people, and we should really have that conversation. And it's true. I mean, we both need to stay away from the threats of cybersecurity, and what better way than to team up and strengthen our ability to that front.
I
I
think
love
that's
it.
great. And I think there are other opportunities. What I would say is that we should definitely sort of have a boot meeting with them, with this person that would be sort of officially designated to be the liaison or the ex officio member, from the school, and run through things like this with them and find out, would they be the single point of contact? Would there be other points of contact we should name on different subjects, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Yep, great. So I'll commit to reaching out and asking them about the ex officio member to appoint. I'm guessing, and it sounds like, yeah, I wasn't aware that they had lost their director. Yeah, but maybe that's the reason why they were hesitant. I think it was last summer when I reached out. The school board and the superintendent weren't ready to nominate somebody because I'm guessing they were in the middle of the hiring process at that
Right.
time. So, but maybe now that's done, they're ready. So, okay. Let's great discussion. Let's jump on. Yeah, I love the idea of especially leveraging volunteer youth from this for the Help Senior Center, um, security issues center related to myseniorcenter.com. I think that's still open. Are they still using myseniorcenter.com? I'm guessing they are. Um, we need to verify that.
Trying to remember what
Um,
that one was, Matt. Was that a specific issue or just a general statement about we needed to review the security around that platform?
um,
I don't recall for sure, but I think it was just a general question that came up when they were reviewing the cloud services that they were using, and somebody asked whether I can go back if you'd like. What was that, 13 April? See if I have any context. Programs for outreach. It had to do with the question about whether there was, and actually it was a question Angela asked, are there any health data that are maintained in myseniorcenter.com? Pam answered that it was limited and locked, and we just took an action that somebody should look into information and security.
Well, if I
That was
ask
the
the question,
context.
I guess you should put my name next to that and I'll try to look up and do some more research on that.
Okay.
yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, if there is help data, then hopefully it's HIPAA compliant. Board of Health. Um, the town looking for a way to make changes to the town website.
That's done.
Call. It's done. Awesome.
Excuse me?
Yep. Yep.
That's done?
Yep.
Various online services used by the Board of Health can SSO single sign-on. I think we'd probably need a refresher what online services they're using, and then
Yep. I'm not too sure which online services that they might be talking about there. They haven't mentioned it to me. Again, it could be an option if it is something that's coming up that we can add to Duo as well. If need, if need be. They haven't mentioned
The public fax services. What was the question again? Oh, single sign-on.
Yeah.
Let me see if there was. Yeah, I don't know.
we don't need to answer the question right now.
This was just additional discussion, action item for group, including single sign-on for various services used by the Board of Health. I don't have any more context than that.
Okay. All right. Sounds like we just, in our next discussion, whenever that is with them, find out what services they're using and see if they're compatible with
Okay.
Duo. Ideally, long-term, Jason, it'd be great to more and more, hopefully push more and more of all these services to use true single sign-on, which is either, SAML or OIDC, and basically have, the source of truth for all authentication, both the authentication, the credentials, as well as two-factor, be, your Active Directory behind. But that's, I know, it's going to be, quite some
fax,
time.
fax services part is good, is all set as well.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
What was that?
Fax
Fax is complete.
services.
Is next.
Oh.
That's eFax currently.
What was it? What was the solution?
eFax.
Awesome.
Excellent.
ARPA funds for SCADA security.
Yeah.
Is this something you're applying for, Jason?
Yes. So
Yes,
I actually, I did, matter of fact, I just got an article sent to me by Karen Galligan too, similar to not the ARPA part, but the SCADA security and what they're looking to do as far as assisting all towns with making sure that they are up to par on security. I've definitely, first of all, separated this out from our internal network. So that's one thing. I was very skeptical about the device and I just totally segregated it from our internal network.
Awesome.
That's the first step that I've done. But it's funny, on top of that email was another announcement from the government as far as concerns with, unfortunately, what's going on a broader scale, which is the stuff that's happening in Russia. And they're concerned that if America puts sanctions on Russia, that Russia could turn around and try attacking our SCADA systems around the United States. So they're really trying to beef up with town municipalities to make sure that we're in a good place as well. So I'm actually going to be reaching out to this, and possibly at the same, if more funds are needed, definitely looking into ARPA to commit to some funds to beef it up as well if we need to. It's a lot of, old technology in a sense,
It's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not just here, it's everywhere. It's across the board.
Yeah.
They're all running really old technology for water, so.
Yeah. Okay. Scan and catalog documents for the town clerk. Do you know anything about that, Jason?
I'm not sure where they have gone next with this. This was a really big topic when I first got hired. I know that they're still in the process of looking for someone to kind of catalog their documents. I can check in with the town clerk tomorrow or sometime this week just to see where he's at with this. And I can follow up with you guys either via email or at our next meeting.
Next meeting is fine. Yeah, no rush. Hire a second person. It sounds like you're in the middle of interviews. Is that right?
I am, and I'm trying my best to
Awesome.
hopefully get somebody soon because
This is in process.
process.
Yep. Yeah. Vendor selection question. This is redundant, I assume, right? Vendor selection form questionnaires, departments used for vendor selection.
No, this was actually a separate effort that Angela had put together. That was focused. Actually, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. The work that Larry had done was around technology projects, and this one was around vendor selection. So I do have kind of the working draft of that, and then I think this team gave feedback on that. So I just need to kind of coalesce it into a final single document. So I'll do that and I'll recirculate it.
Okay, we discuss it in our next meeting. That'd be great. Training a seminar from MTC Iron Mountain that service without violating open meeting law. So are we using Iron Mountain? Yet?
No, this was related to all of the town clerk document retention. If you remember, he said something about they couldn't do full automation because of something about like version control and some of the original documents. And so the question had come up about how do you maintain the authentic nature of the document. And I had an Iron Mountain contact who told me that they worked with other city governments to do just this. And apparently there are solutions out there. So we wanted to invite that person to essentially have a discussion with this committee. And the question arose about open meeting laws. Would that actually fall under open meeting laws? So could we have like a training session with Iron Mountain to help educate ourselves on how this could be done?
Yeah.
The other alternative, if we consider the topic secure, and I don't know if we do or don't, but we've never actually held an executive session, but in theory we could.
If it's
I believe that's what Mr. Hegarty came back and said. I thought he said that we could do it.
Yeah. I think he said we could do it if it's just general training or basically telling us information about the product, then there's no issue. There's no open meeting law issue because that's basically one way of flowing information. It's once we start like discussing specific configurations, that's when it would invoke open meeting law. But even there, if there's anything security related, then yeah, we can go in an executive session and be covered. So, all right. So I think that's still open. I think it'd be good to.
Just out of curiosity, would an executive session have to be an in-person meeting?
No.
Well, then how do we cleanse the YouTube?
We wouldn't go on YouTube. We'd stop broadcasting YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we would do Zoom without any recording then?
Yep.
Okay.
Non-webinar mode.
We'd
go out of it. Great. Okay. Fiber link across Route 9. That's closed. Resolved. Awesome. Track issues raised. We're looking at the document. That's resolved. Great, Larry.
Yep.
Description of volunteer to help MC various departments. Volunteer to help MC address departments with various initiatives. So yeah, I think there's probably be department by department based on how much initiatives, like we know we discussed with the senior center, possibly help, volunteers to uh, do the technology, training for seniors, etc. Um, but yeah, I think this is sort of still open. We can keep this open as we come up with that we need volunteers to help. And then strategic tech plan needs to be updated in light of citizen survey, and that's in progress. Or actually, it's probably already done.
Yeah, I just marked that resolved. It says complete. So,
Okay.
Okay,
Awesome.
okay, so what I will do, I haven't been maintaining this. I will go through the minutes starting in October and update this. I'll add any action items that came out of that, add them to the list and recirculate this to the group with the updates that I just added.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And
Okay. I think that is everything on our agenda tonight. Is there anything else we wanted to cover that needs to be covered that we missed? I noticed Mr. Donovan, Director Donovan, is on the line. Do we want to briefly revisit the hotspots discussion with him? Let me have a talk. Hi, Ryan. Thanks for joining us tonight. Can you hear us okay? Maybe he's tuned us out. There you go.
He could have been listening. He might be listening.
Oh, looks like he's in transit. You're on mute.
You're on
Ryan.
mute, but if you can't talk and drive, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
we can go over it again next month.
Okay, we can go over it again next month. I can reach out to you, Ryan. We basically cover we had some discussion on the hotspots earlier, but thank you for joining us. If there's nothing else, thank you everyone for your time tonight. And I move that we adjourn.
Wait, we need next meeting.
Oh, right. Thank you.
He's ready.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, how does the 15th of March, for keeping our theme of the middle of the month?
That works for me.
So,
Are we going to invite Caesar or?
Caesar?
who's Caesar?
Ides of March.
Oh,
Come on,
guys,
guys.
it's Mark.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Nice. Slow crowd.
Yeah, right.
It's an illusion.
Just so you know, I'll keep it in my calendar. So like tonight I was good, but it seems like we keep our scheduling on meetings right around the Board of Selectmen meetings, and sometimes they need me for things. So I'm just keeping you aware in case something comes up. We'll keep it there. I'm good with the 15th, but I believe that the Board of Selectmen.
Do we know when their March Board of Selectmen meeting is? Is it on that exact date or is it?
Just check because I actually do have email. Flagged. Where did you go? Yes, March 1st and March 15th.
Oh,
I had a feeling familiar when you said it, so I was like, I believe that they are meeting. I'm just letting you know it may come up that I might have to be, they might need me technically wise or something might come up. So
do we want to consider moving it up a week for March? The only reason I say that is, that would allow us to do any sort of final review for the for the survey, if we're trying to get the survey out by the 14th of March.
I have a business trip the first week of March. It's just I won't have all my action items done if we target the 8th.
And I'll be away on vacation that night.
Okay, so that's not an option. How about the 17th of March? It's a Thursday.
St. Patrick's Day.
Is that bad for people?
No.
St. Patrick's Day.
The
Jason and I
weekend,
are
maybe
going to
not
be
so-
drinking. I don't know what you're going to be doing.
Okay,
but-
all right, all right.
If it's a
It's
weekday,
it's less
I'll be
ominous than the Ides.
Okay, 22nd. How's that looking for people?
22nd is a Tuesday. Yeah. Yeah, that works too.
Jason, how's that on your schedule?
I believe that looks good for right now. Yes.
Angela, Will?
Works fine.
All right, I'll schedule it for that night, the 22nd. Tentatively there.
Second.
Okay.
Next meeting that's Tuesday, right? Tuesday,
22nd,
March
yeah.
22nd at 7 p.m. Okay, now you can move adjournment.
Okay. I move that we adjourn.
And I second it.
Okay. Go around the room. Will,
Yes.
Angela,
Yes.
Larry,
Yep.
and likewise. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys.